What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich, joined, as always, by my co-host and good buddy, Adam Blevins. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be back. I hate so much that I had to miss last week on both shows, on the Agents of Fandom podcast and Reckless Rebellion, but you guys did such a great job talking about everything. But still, it was such a bummer to not only be – I think I was almost more upset about having to miss those shows than I was about feeling like the worst I had, being sicker than I have in probably a couple of years. But I'm so glad to be back up on the horse and feeling so much better and feeling like myself again for the first time in a little more than a week. So I can't wait to get into some XMen with y'all.
If you didn't catch last week's show, we broke down the finale of The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 15 with Jordan Mason. And then our fellow agent, Damon Gray, joined us to talk some X-Men 97, and we broke down Part 1 of Tolerance's Extinction. Now, this is the first week in a long time that we don't have two different shows to cover in one episode. We just get to cover one, hang out, relax, don't have to worry about keeping a time frame and making sure that we're not here all day because we only got the one show. We can ease into it a little bit. So we're going to be covering Part 2, Tolerance is Extinction. It's Episode 9 of X-Men 97, and talk a little bit of extras as well. As we went on air, we got a new Fantastic Four casting. We got a new Superman suit this week. First look at David Corenswet in the Superman suit, and we also got a brand new Acolyte trailer. And to help us break it all down, we got our guy, Klein Felt, co-host of the Reckless Rebellion podcast. You know him from the direct.com and multiple other places as well. How you doing, Klein?
I'm doing well. Happy Apes Week, guys. We are here just a couple of days away from my screening of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I cannot wait. Can't wait. I wasn't going to do a rewatch heading into this movie, but yesterday, just the hype got to me. I sat down, I watched the first one, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this trilogy is really good. And then my spouse came home. I was planning on watching the other two over the next couple of days. Spouse Gabby walks in and she's like, I think I want to watch one of those Apes movies. And I was like, let's go. Okay, we fired up the second one. Gonna watch the third one tonight. I can't wait. I cannot wait. I'm so happy. Thank you guys for bringing me on. I'm excited to be here. Always a pleasure to join the AOF fam when I can, and I'm excited to talk X-Men. There's a lot happening, and I'm excited to do it all.
Happy Apes Week to everyone. Happy Apes Week to you, Adam. We'll start this new kind of segment I wanted to roll with, and that's, what's everybody watching right now? We're covering X-Men, but we're each watching a lot of individual things. So as we, of course, hit the like button, subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell, all those great things. Make sure you subscribe to the Agents of Fandom wherever you get your podcasts. Rate 5 stars, all that good stuff. Check us out on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter. Agents of Fandom everywhere else. They're here at the bottom of the screen. Adam, you got to see Apes this week already. What did you think?
Oh my gosh. So I didn't rewatch the movies before, not by choice, mostly just because Hulu is the one streaming service that I don't have nowadays, and I was a little too lazy to pre-order them or to order them on Prime and rewatch them for a few bucks. But so I didn't watch anything. I didn't have that, which is so funny. I was talking to fellow agent Ryan about this, who he's got an awesome interview coming soon with Owen Teague and Kevin Durant, I believe. Anyway, I got way off track there. I adore this movie more so than a lot of. I've already seen some people kind of saying that it's really good, but saying that it doesn't quite stack up to the first 3 movies or the more recent 3 movies that we got per se. And I was kind of expecting to feel the same way generally, especially with Ryan. Ryan and I have very similar tastes, and that was how he felt about the movie, that he really liked it, but it was kind of maybe down below, right around where Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then maybe even a little bit below that it didn't quite reach those highs. But to me, I disagree with so much of what people are saying about this movie, whether it was because one of the biggest complaints that I've seen is the pacing, that the pacing is really bad, that it's too slow or it's too much. A lot of the stuff people were saying about Dune Part 1 when it came out. Yeah, it's a good movie, but this is it's so slow, so much setup. I didn't feel any of that. There's so much action, so much happens. And it does lean into a lot of what happened in the previous 3 movies, because now this is set 300 years after the fact, but Caesar and everything that he fought for is still very prevalent. Like this world, it's pretty much split into several factions, like of people interpreting Caesar's teachings in very, very different ways. And I was expecting to get a whole lot of backstory about, well, this group split off and this and this and this, and then this group split off and they kind of feel this way. No, they like jump right into it and they give you like a little bit of stuff pretty quick. And there's so much really, really great action. The visual effects, I saw this in IMAX, the sound, but especially the visual effects, the whole world is beautiful. I forgot how much I loved spending time in this world with the apes and just watching them swing from the trees and climb and scale buildings and do this stuff is great. So for me, this landed, I still don't think it's quite as good because Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is my favorite. I think the second one is the best apes movie that they've made. And I think War is really, all three of the previous ones are great. If I had to rank them, I'd say Dawn, War, and then Rise. But it's one of those things where it's like 5, 4.8, like 4.5, like all really, really good. This to me is in that like War rank. Like I think this is better than Rise of the Planet of the Apes, even if it doesn't quite reach the same highs as Dawn. This is a really, really great movie for so many reasons. And if you're not, for those that aren't familiar with it, even if you don't, like if you haven't seen any of the Apes movies, whether it's the old ones or even the recent ones, anybody can jump in and enjoy it. Like granted, there's a few things with Caesar that they'll probably wait. Who's Caesar and why are they kind of feeling this way? But there's so much to love here for like passionate fans like myself and also people that have just never seen it and they're just like, oh, hey, there's a Planet of the Apes movie out this weekend. Should I go see that? So I love this movie overall. If I had to rank it, I would say probably in somewhere in the 4.3 to 4.5 out of 5 range. The biggest complaint that I had is we don't get enough Proximus. Like the villain is great. Very, very little of him overall. I really wanted more from Proximus, but that's pretty much, except for like a few very minor gripes, that's pretty much my only complaint. I thought this was a nearly perfect movie.
And before actually, no, I'll bring it back to you for that later because I do want to talk about apes a little bit more. You brought up the wonderful interview that Ryan Cortero is going to have coming to agentsofandom.com as well as the YouTube page. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say by the time you're listening to this podcast, that's already going to be out. So check those feeds. And it's truly a truly awesome interview. It really doesn't sound like an interview. It sounds like a couple of friends talking about apes. Like really, it just sounds like you can tell that Kevin and Owen are so impressed and intrigued by Ryan's questions, and it's a really, really great interview. So make sure you check that one out. I have a confession: I have never actually seen a single Apes movie.
Wow,
that's one of the larger gaps in like my fandoms because I love sci-fi and fantasy and all of these kind of worlds, and I haven't seen a single Apes movie. So that's definitely going to be a rewatch thing that I do at some point where it's just like, I'm going to watch all of them. But I've been, new baby, really busy. Haven't had time to watch a lot of new stuff. We're doing an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. rewatch right now. That's on hold because we're waiting until my sibling-in-law catches up to us, and then we're all going to watch it at the same time. So we're held right at the start of season 4 of that one. And so I've been, throwing some Avatar, The Last Airbender, things like that on the background. But I did get to see Challengers last weekend. Loved it. Incredible, just as everyone said. Such a good movie. Next one on my list I really want to get to while it's still in theaters is The Fall Guys. So hopefully we can get a babysitter and get to that one in here. But while it is still in theaters, Klein, how about you? Did you get a chance to watch the new Apes movie yet? And what else are you watching right now?
Not yet. Where I am, we don't necessarily get the early screenings that all these press folks get to go and hang out in. But I have my ticket. I'm going this weekend. I cannot wait. I was a Rise person. I saw that movie right when it first came out. I was so excited, and then I didn't go and see Dawn, and I didn't see War, and it was actually leading into the Batman, where I was like, this Matt Reeves guy, let's see what he's all about. I was like, oh wait, he just kind of made 2 of the best science fiction movies maybe ever, and no one knows. Like, no, it seems crazy. This franchise, that trilogy in particular, is like one of the most underrated, just full on end-to-end masterpiece trilogies and movies, especially those last 2 films. I think I am a War guy more than a Dawn guy, but I think Dawn they're both 5-star movies. Like, they're both absolute masterpieces. So I have not seen Kingdom yet. I'm very excited to see it. I actually did go and see The Fall Guy this past week. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it, TJ. I'm not as high on it as I think some people are. A lot of people are really, really loving it. I thought it was a good time. It is a great, get a thing of popcorn, get the biggest Diet Coke you can, sit in there. And I wish it was a little hotter out. Like, I wish this was like a July movie, because it would be perfect. Like, let's go in the air conditioning and just hang out and see Ryan Gosling do some fun stuff. But I did think it kind of like, it was quite silly, and it didn't have the magic that I wanted it to have. Like, I would put it on a similar level, and I'm not like taking anything away from either of these movies, but I would put it on a similar level to Anyone But You, which I just recently watched as well, where it's like, it's a good time. It's great. It's movie stars doing movie star stuff. It's a lot of fun, but it's going to end and you're just going to kind of be like, okay, well, I don't know if I'll ever think about that again. Maybe when Natasha Bedingfield comes back on, I'll think about Anyone But You, but like, I'm never going to like think about the actual inner workings of that movie ever again. So I liked it, didn't love it. Excited for Kingdom. Can't wait for Furiosa. That's going to be the one for me this month. That's my big, got that circled on the calendar. Fury Road's one of those like all-timer movies for me. So yeah, just other than that, watching a lot of Anthony Bourdain for some reason.
I'm just gonna drop my credibility lower and lower and lower. I've never seen I've never seen an Apes movie. I've never seen a Mad Max movie. I've never seen a Blade Runner movie. And so these are
Wow.
3 areas that I really need to
seen Fury
figure
Road.
out.
I have never seen any of the other Mad Max movies, but Fury Road is
Same.
like, I went into Fury Road when it came out the year I graduated high school, and I think I watched it. It must have been in college. It was like right when college started. It's like one of the first movies I think I went and saw. And was just like, I'm like, I didn't know movies could do that. Like, it's like all the practicality and everything. It just is so massive and big. And I'm like, I don't understand really what's happening, but this is awesome. And I hope Furiosa lives up to that.
I am very clearly sleep deprived because I was like, I'm not watching anything right now. I'm rewatching a few things. I went to the movie theater last weekend. No, I just finished Dead Boy Detectives on Netflix. We went through that in about a day and a half, 2 days. And
What did you think?
I enjoyed it. It was fun. Some parts of it that it like didn't, the stakes didn't hook me all that much, because I kind of felt like I knew what was going to happen. Not that the stakes weren't high. I just felt like I knew it was going to happen a little bit, but it was fun. A little mystery each episode that ties into the larger mystery. I think if there was a more imposing villain throughout, it would have been a little more worrisome. But I had it was an enjoyable time. It was kind of like nice, easy viewing with a little bit of gore in it. But where I'm also in the midst now, 4 episodes into 3 Body Problem, also on Netflix. And man, is that show ever a trip figuring out what was going on. And so halfway through that one right now, enjoying that quite a bit. But I'm also enjoying quite a bit the X-Men 97, which of course we're going to be getting to. But before that, let's touch on a little bit of news we got this week. We haven't covered news in so long. This is fun. John Malkovich cast in the new Fantastic Four movie. We know nothing about it, but touching on that one quick, any fun ideas as to who he could be? Adam, I'll throw it to you first, either as a character or like what you think the type of role he'll be portraying is.
So this is not a fun guess. I don't have some super fun guess, but if I did have to predict anything, it's I don't know why I get this gut feeling like he's going to be a relative to one of the team members, like maybe even Sue and Reed's dad or something like that. I don't know where that's striking me, but that's kind of where I feel like he's definitely not going to be. I saw some people throwing around Herbie. I definitely don't think that's him. I think if anything, Paul Walter Hauser that just got cast about a week ago, I think that's probably more
Herbie or Mole Man. He's Herbie or Mole Man. Paul Walter Hauser is Herbie or Mole Man. It's one of the two.
He's got to be, yeah. But like for me, I think, and I could also see John Malkovich being in some kind of like what's the group that popped up in Spider-Man No Way Home or Spider-Man Home? Yeah, No Way Home in the very beginning. The agents, the Damage Control. That's their name, right?
Yeah.
Whatever this movie's version of Damage Control is, I can see him being one of those agents that's constantly having to kind of get in the way of doing things. Like I don't see him being a super powered character, but I feel like he'll either be somebody related to one of the main cast members, or we'll get him as, like I said, some kind of agent or somebody working opposite them, but that's not a real threat, if that makes sense. That's where my head's. But more often than not, I'm wrong about this kind of stuff. So he's probably is going to be a superpowered character and is going to be something that I could never guess in a million years.
If I were to guess somebody just based on I do think he could be a big imposing villain, it's, maybe that is Galactus. But we've had so many potential Galactus ideas thrown out there. I remember way back when there was a rumor that it was going to be Antonio Banderas as Galactus. So I have no idea, but that was like the first thing that popped into my head. How about you, Klein?
My initial impression was like, could this be a fun twist on Galactus? We don't know, but it's assumed that this is like alternate reality, could be in another universe. So like, this doesn't necessarily mean that this is the MCU's Galactus. So it could be like, hey, here's something different. A name that I have seen getting thrown around a little bit is a fun Fantastic Four villain known as Puppet Master, which I think he could be a lot of fun as just zany early 60s comic book villain. And so I think that to me screams John Malkovich. But you know what? I have no idea. It could be cool if they do some variant stuff too. Like, what if he's a character we've already seen? What if he is like this universe's, I don't know, Doctor Strange? Like, I'm just
first thing
throwing a
that popped
name
into
out
my
there.
head was Obadiah Stane, just because
What if he's Obadiah Stane?
Because it kind of looks
These
like
Fantastic Four built this in a cave. I think that could be really cool too. The fact that John Malkovich is even looking Marvel's way right now says a lot, I think, about this particular film. Just looking at this cast we have that they're slowly assembling, this is an A-list thing, and that's not to say Marvel has like fallen off the A-list train at any time recently, but there hasn't been as many heavy hitters. There hasn't been a Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange or casting Brie Larson as Captain Marvel for the first time. And so like bringing in a lot of these like big names like Pedro Pascal, like Vanessa Kirby, and then now John Malkovich, I think it's, if anything, as a fan, you can look at this and go, oh, wow, like the pitch that Marvel has for this film, the pitch that the creatives have for this thing is really drawing the attention of some like very interesting names and people who traditionally like shy away from this sort of thing. So I think that's really good. Gotta wait a year, July 2025. Can't wait. But like, it's I'm excited to hear and see what like Malkovich actually is doing. I hope he's Galactus. I think it's just that'd be so silly.
It's the first time really we've seen this amalgamation collaboration of big name A-listers since I think Eternals, where they just put together this big group where we're like, yeah, big name actors, big salaries, whatever, we're going to get you in here. We got a really project we're proud of. Obviously Eternals wasn't received well by everybody. I think it's kind of one of those you love it or you hate it movies.
But you can see how on paper that movie maybe would have drawn all those eyes,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
That pitch of that film for sure would get, so you never know with the Fantastic Four. It could turn out like that. I'm not like, I don't want to jinx it. It could be that, but it could also be something great. But you can totally see how Eternals, like that pitch that Chloe Zhao had, would get someone like Angelina Jolie and Selma Hayek and all these names to go, huh, maybe I should do the superhero thing. I guess the paycheck also helps, but
let Chloe Zhao direct Thor 4. That's the only thing I wanted to add.
I'm game for that. I would love that. And
do we not already have Thor 4?
So Thor 5. Oh my God. Thor 5. Excuse me.
No, we're gonna redo Love and Thunder with Chloe Zhao.
Release the Zhao cut. That's what I've been saying.
Just redo the whole movie.
I don't know that I necessarily need a second Eternals movie, but what I will say is I want more of the characters. I was rewatching it the other day and like, I really want more Angelina Jolie as Thena because she was just so great. All of them individually are just so great. And so I do really want to see more of them going in the future. Next up, though, we transition from Marvel to DC because on a random Monday, just hanging out. We're doing nothing. It's not a big article. It's not a big reason. But James Gunn and David Corenswet just think, hey, why don't we throw this photo up on Instagram and on Threads? It just completely takes out Adam as I throw it up on the screen here. Adam is now Superman. as I put it up on the visuals. If you're watching this on YouTube, once again, hit that like button. But we have David Corenswet, Superman. I'm trying to adjust this to get all of us in here, see if it'll work. But we're either all in here or just Adam's gone.
That's fine. I'll be okay.
We got the first look suit on a random Monday, and without even critiquing or complimenting the suit itself yet, it's a very interesting visual. We got a whole bunch of weird stuff going on in the background in space. A lot of people speculating, is this Brainiac related? What's going on out there? And the other thing that really caught my eye is David Corenswet looks really, really good as Superman. So before we dive into like analysis of the suit, quick look. What do you think of this? A way of announcing the new suits. How do you think Corenswet looks? What do you think's going on in the picture? What are your thoughts on the reveal, Adam?
So I think Corenswet looks great. I never had any doubt that he was going to be an absolutely awesome Superman, and especially one of the goofiest things to me was when he was first cast. You know, people were posting the picture and they're like, "He's not big enough to play Superman," and then we get that photo like later in the day of him looking like he's like 280
you
pounds.
You give anyone enough chicken and rice, and you're gonna.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, when he just looks like he's straight lean beef, just 300 pounds of absolute pure shredded muscle. So that was one of the that was just such a goofy thing, because I think people often forget, if you give somebody, you know, millions and millions of dollars and just say, hey, dedicate your entire next here's a team of 25 people that are going to look after you around the clock. Dedicate your next 6 months to getting in shape. Pretty much anybody, like as long as they're willing to stick to it, could get in crazy good shape. But I think he looks great. I know I'll wait, because I think you said we want to wait to actually talk about the suit itself. But overall for him, I think he looks great. So that's no notes on him. I wasn't swayed one way or the other. I know a lot of people were really excited about the little hair swoop thing, like a lot of the classic Superman fans. Like I wasn't moved particularly. Like I wasn't upset that we got it, or I also wasn't like, oh man, like I can't believe that or anything like that. But I mean, he looks great. Yeah, 10 out of 10. No notes for him.
Klein, how about you?
I think he looks fantastic. Like, this will come into play here very quickly. I am like a DC guy. That's what I grew up on. Other than Spider-Man, these were my heroes. And so like, this is my Superman. Like, this guy looks so good. I do really like the suit, but we'll get into that. As for the reveal, I think that it isn't really a random Monday. To us, it is, but I think it has. I've seen some speculation kind of going around. My coworker at the Direct, David Thompson, brought this up in a chat the other day. I think it probably has something to do with what they are going to start filming and how they're going to start filming it. And so it I think was a matter of, let's get this thing out there before someone else does for us. And just because I think he's going to be starting to shoot a little more in public and that sort of thing as production really, really, really ramps into full swing here. And so I think that's why it happened, but I think he looks good. The weird, interesting note that James Gunn accompanied with this was that there is no CGI in the shot at all, which is interesting to me because they're blowing up the moon behind him. I don't know how that works, but if that's the case, cool. Like I'm into it, right? Like
the practical moon that they're blowing up with a big beam.
I also don't know if this is from the movie. Like, I've also seen some people thinking, like, could this just be like a costume test look at him, and this isn't actually a moment that'll happen in the film? Who's to say? We don't really know until the movie comes out, but I could also see that happening just because it does feel very like staged, very like, who has an apartment with just a chair sitting in the corner? But I like it. I'm into it. I'm excited.
Let's start talking about the suit itself, because I'll say I don't have a ton of thoughts, and I feel like I kind of want to just pit the two of you against each other on this, so that's what I'm going to do. But I think the basics are great. He's got the trunks, the boots look cool, the hair is awesome. I'm okay that it's got the collar. I could go without it, but it's irrelevant to me. I think the biggest thing that we need to take into account is, like you said, Klein, no CGI on the suit itself. It looks bunched up in the shoulders and weird, and I think that's because that's how clothes fit. and that's going to be out CGI'd, so he looks normal and Superman and cool when it's in the movie itself. It looks pretty dark. I would like it to be more vibrant, but it's
Does
also
it,
a
though?
dark shot, and it's battle worn, and so I don't know that it actually is. This photo looks dark. I don't think that necessarily means that the suit is. What do you think, Adam?
Okay, so it wouldn't be an Agents of
Here we
Fandom
go.
it wouldn't be an Agents of Fandom podcast without me being pessimistic about something. So I'm gonna go back a little bit though, because my story with this goes back a little further than when I was just getting the suit. So when he first revealed the logo, which I think has been 2 or 3 months now, when we got that first, like the picture of it in the snow a couple months ago, I didn't like the logo personally at all, and I'm sure it directly ties to a Superman comic that I'm not
Kingdom
aware
Come.
of a lot. And a lot of people are like, no, you got like this is the perfect logo. But to me,
They're right.
this is just like a red circle with a line through it. Like I looked through some of the other ones that have such like an eloquent, obvious S. And then again, I want to just preface everything I'm saying here. This is for me personally. I'm not going to tell anybody they should or shouldn't like the suit. Like this is just strictly how I feel. Like Klein, I'm so happy you love it, and I can't wait for you to get to just shout your love for this to the skies. But for me, and I'm with you too, TJ, that one of the things that throws me off a lot is the wrinkling that we've got in the shoulders. But that's one of those things that I'm reserving judgment on because I think it will look much, much different. Like the final product will look much different. Now, and so moving away from the logo to the actual suit, while I'm not a huge fan, I'm not a fan of the collar in particular. I do like the trunks. The logo doesn't work for me. We've got a lot, and as we talked about, and then we've got that stuff in the shoulders. The boots are a little, I don't know. They remind me a lot of like Captain America's first suit in the Avengers, where the boots are just so big and red and bright that anytime he's on screen, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't stop looking at those damn boots. But again, it's so hard for me to judge it because while I don't like it right now, there's easily a world where when we get the first trailer or whatever, or like the first shot where like James Gunn actually reveals it. If this isn't, like you were saying, Klein, if this isn't a shot from the movie, this is just like a costume test, which that's the same vibe that I get. I feel like we're not ever going to see anything like this in the movie. That seems like just a backdrop that was painted or something. If it's not CGI, like he said, that just seems like a backdrop. And like he was just getting dressed one morning and somebody snapped and James snapped a picture of him while they were going over some lines. So I'm not putting too much stock into like this being what we're going to get in the final product. And while I don't like it much at all, and I know people get annoyed when you say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I'm going to just intentionally annoy people. This does look like a CW suit to me. This looks like one of the crappy like as this is right now, it looks like a crappy low budget CW suit to me. But where's the CW when I see those suits and I'm like, oh, they're cooked because this is the final product. In this case, I think what we're going to end up getting, even to me, will look much, much better than what we get right here.
Klein, rebuttal. You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. No,
I don't. You see, here's the thing: is I don't 100% disagree with you here, Adam. I like the suit. I don't like the first look. I think that this is a weird shot for us, to get as a first kind of peek at what the costume's going to look like. As for like, I was really hoping this was going to be like a fairly traditional Golden Age Superman, a reinvention of the darkness that we got in the DCEU movies into the DCU. And I think that this is it, but we are missing a few things. And just with this shot, you can't really see it. Just everything is so dusted up and dirty. If you look at his legs, you do get some of the bright blue that like I was kind of hoping for. So I think that is the color that the suit is going to actually be. I was hoping we would get a shot from the film, similar to like we got with Superman Returns way back in the 2000s, of him like standing straight up, like maybe hands on hips or saving someone. And it's like, oh my God, like that is Superman. How cool would it have been if they recreated that first comic cover first appearance of Superman, of him with the car and the lady in the hand with the costume on? I think that could have been really cool. This to me just kind of screams like, okay, I don't know why it had to be this look. I personally love the color. New 52 Superman, a big New 52 fan, and so that costume, like that collar, is like, I think, such a cool look on him. He's got the belt, which I like. We haven't had Superman with a belt in a while. Got the trunks, the bright red boots. I think that this will look better on screen than it does in this image. And you know what? I also don't think this is this might be the costume he starts in. I don't think this is the costume he finishes in. I like this theory that's been going around online where this is going to be kind of a reverse of the Death and Return of Superman, where he ends in this golden age costume. He ends in the bright blue, hyper contrast, whereas this looks a little more alien to me with just like the lines on it and the details. It looks not of Earth. Maybe we do get something that does resemble more of a like quote unquote Superman costume by the end of the film. I like the Kingdom Come. It's a cool cut to make. That's what James Gunn does. But this to me kind of feels like that James Gunn Guardians aesthetic thrown onto Superman, and I do believe we get a traditional looking one by the end of the movie.
Maybe we get this is straight from the Fortress of Solitude, and by the end of the movie, he's gonna get some Fortress of Solitude thread, bring it to Ma Kent, and she'll do a Spider-Man style sewing job at the end of No Way Home, and get him in his nice, vibrant, Earth-looking, spandexy new suit. We'll see, but an interesting, polarizing first look. I'm just really excited for this movie to get here because I do think it's going to be one for the ages. I think we haven't had a Superman being Superman movie in quite a while, in quite a few years. And so I'm looking forward to getting the classic natural portrayal of what Superman is back in action. Final thing before we swap over to X-Men 97 is we did get a brand new The Acolyte trailer this week. I don't think we got to, break it down frame by frame, get crazy with it, nothing like that. To me, this set up what the plot is of the show. We got the Jedi are being hunted. And it's very much framing us to think it's one specific character doing it until the end of the trailer. We get a dark, mysterious figure with a red lightsaber and a creepy smile looking thing on his mask, looking like a Darth something, looking like an Inquisitor of some kind, taking down some Jedis. He's got the red lightsaber. Lightsabers galore throughout the trailer. What did you think about the new one we got, Adam? Did it level up your excitement for the series at all?
No, it didn't, but not because I don't think it's a good trailer. I haven't particularly been blown away by any of the trailers or anything that we've gotten for this. And I believe, Klein, the last time you were here, we actually talked about the first Acolyte trailer, if I'm not mistaken, a couple months ago. And I feel the same way about this one that I did about the first one. But what I will say to pivot, throw a little bit of a curveball at you, I went and saw the Phantom Menace re-release in theaters last Sunday, like the first day that I finally started feeling better. And they're playing a special look at the Acolyte at the end of that movie, not a trailer, but like a full, probably like a 2.5 minute clip. And it's a clip of Carrie-Anne Moss's Jedi fighting that main character that we see wearing the dark red robe. That leveled up my excitement because it's just like a straight 2 minute long fight scene. And it's some of the best choreography that we've seen because like the way they're going in and out of using between lightsabers, knives, the Force, hand-to-hand. I don't know who all they had involved with the choreography on the show, but they did their homework and they wanted to make something that feels different because I'm getting chills talking about it because I was blown away watching the clip for that in the theater. And it also kind of struck me as one of those, this is probably within the first 20 minutes of the first episode type fight scenes. But the trailer, it didn't really blow me. It was cool to get to see the red lightsaber. I get a little more of an Inquisitor than a Sith vibe from that guy. Than like somebody that maybe whoever the ultimate big bad is kind of sent somebody else out to go hunt some Jedi rather than like this guy taking off the mask and being some, horde villain that we're going to be worried about. But while the trailers haven't done much for me, I'm still just like we talked about last time. I'm so excited to step outside of this very confined bubble that we've been in for Star Wars for so long. And the one thing that I will say is the most interesting to me is we know that this show is going to detail the fall of the High Republic and when like the Jedi were at their peak. But obviously, leading like all the way up to like into the Phantom Menace and into the prequel trilogy, there's still a lot of Jedi like all around the galaxy. So they fell, but they didn't fall like completely. They just kind of stumbled. They maybe like fell down a couple of pegs. So that's one thing that I'm really interested to see is like, obviously we know they're not going to wipe out all the Jedi because there's still plenty of them around 100 years later, is how they navigate that. Like clearly it feels like the Jedi are kind of being set up to lose, but we know they can't lose but so much. So there's a lot that I'm excited about for the show. But I'll say none of that excitement really has come from the trailers. It's all come from kind of interviews and other promotional material that we've seen.
I actually agree with that 100%. The trailers didn't get me excited in the plot at all because to me, I got the vibes of essentially just, are the Jedi not all they're cracked up to be, and their arrogance is leading to their fall? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting a little bit, which is like we've seen that one before, but each of these new characters looks so cool. I'm really excited about the fight sequences. I'm looking forward to the new styles of fights we're going to get with lightsaber whips, etc. Klein, what did you think of this new trailer we got?
I actually liked this trailer a whole lot more than the first one. I thought the first one kind of it didn't I didn't feel anything. Like it lacked the like, oh my gosh, hype moment, that like magic that so many Star Wars trailers in the past have given me. And I thought that this like did a better job. They're teasing this intrigue of who's killing, like there's a Jedi murderer essentially out there. What's going on? We need to figure it out. This kind of conspiracy. And my biggest complaint from the first trailer was just that the action to me still felt like really TV. You could see the budget, you could see the seams. It just felt like super highly, I don't know. There was no effort being exerted. And there were a few moments in this trailer where like there's one where a character blocks a blaster bolt and it just looks so like, yeah, I'm just hitting marks. But there was more action in this trailer that I actually thought, oh, that looks really good. Some like crouching tiger, hidden dragon-esque kind of fight scenes with wire work and kicking in the air. And they teased that in the first trailer, but I think they did a better job of like showing it to me here. Maybe I was in a different mind space. Maybe I was ready for it. But I think that this trailer for me got me a little bit more excited. I'm still amped. Like I'm just, as Adam said, I'm so excited to venture out of this timeline that we've been in for so long. Like in movie and TV, been in since 1977 essentially, and not gone really anywhere else. So I'm very excited to like actually have this coming. And this was a good, like, I think this was a better look than the last one was.
What do you think? Is this Darth Plagueis or is this a henchman? Who do we got here on the screen?
I don't think it's Plagueis, but I do think I still bet that Plagueis is a part of this, and I would not be surprised if this person is connected to him.
I would agree with that one completely. I'm interested to see where this is going to go. I'm very excited for The Acolyte to debut. It comes out June 4th, 2024 on Disney Plus with a 2-episode premiere, and you can bet not only will we have a full detailed primer where we'll go through the characters, what we know about them, bring in some High Republic experts. You know, maybe that's when we get Klein's co-host TCR back on the pod. That's when we'll bring Damon, our fellow agent, back on the pod here with us, and we'll let those guys dive into that for the primer. And then of course we'll be covering it week to week as soon as it's on Disney Plus as well. It's time for the moment you have all been waiting for. It is XMen 97. Tolerance is Extinction Part 2. Adam, I want to throw it to you first, not just for your general thoughts on this episode, but the first 2 parts of the 3-part finale, Tolerance is Extinction, because you weren't with us here for last week.
Yeah, I mean, the show is just absolutely blowing me away. We talked about it earlier in the season when we got that Mojo episode that I was a little worried because like that was, to me, like looking back now, that's been the one small dip, and then we got right back up, and now we've just been operating at maximum capacity the whole time. And heading into this 3-part finale, I didn't really think there was any way I could be enjoying the show more. And then what they've done these last 2 episodes, this one in particular, I think what I love so much about it is that I had no idea this, and it feels like it's such a classic X-Men story, like the whole Professor X versus Magneto. That's even in the movies. We've seen that so many different times. These two always end up at odds with each other, but I wasn't expecting it. Like I was expecting this to just be in the beginning of the season. If you'd asked me where I thought we were heading, I'd have been like, well, there's no Xavier around anymore. So, because obviously I didn't watch the original series, so I had no idea that he was coming back. I mean, it makes sense, but I would have been like, maybe Magneto and the new X-Men are going to take on, Mr. Sinister, and that's kind of where we're heading. And then now we're just going through that's like the D plot now. Like Mr. Sinister feels so like even when he was fighting Jean, and that's like I was like, this is so unimportant. Like I'm still entertained. I don't say this as a shot, but I was like, this is so unimportant compared to the big scale of things that I care about in the show right now. Like that scene on the little dock where the meteor or whatever is hovering over them when Charles and Magneto are talking. Absolutely, like the dialogue between those two. There's been a lot of stuff going on around Twitter, like the whole Magneto was right. But that's like when they give us a great villain that I'm like, I don't agree with the murdering people, but like he's kind of got a point with some, and like I see where maybe I wouldn't be siding with him, but I really see where he's coming from because his people have been through hell, and his one like retort to everything is, they did this, they wiped out thousands of us at Genosha, thousands, and like, so how are you still? And I'm like, I can't push back on that. I get it, I absolutely get it, and who knows? I'm not a mutant. I don't have no powers. Nobody does. But if I was in there, I'd be like, maybe I'd be like floating up there to the big comet asteroid M. See, I remember a little bit of stuff. Maybe I was floating up to asteroid M and joining them too. But man, there's so many, like the way they're kind of forcing me to question the perspective, and just to tie things back way early to the beginning of the episode, that I think the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes does this really well too, which is a great sign in any project, that it's constantly kind of turning expectations on its head and making you be like, oh man, I didn't think, and like question all sides of the story and be like, oh, who is in the right and who's in the wrong here, because this is so complicated. I hate when we get these black and white type stories, which sometimes it feels like, especially, Marvel's has had a history of having some weaker villains in the past, very uninspired, just all bad, not relatable. That's like the opposite of what we're getting here, especially with Magneto. And I love so much anytime he's on the screen. So I know I probably went way over. If we had allotted time slots, I went way over on this particular question, but I just love both of these two episodes so much. And I'm as excited to watch the finale of a Marvel show as I think I've been ever now.
We just had this conversation, myself and fellow agent Fat Thor, on Twitter today. If you got one superpower, you found out you were a mutant, what would you want your mutant power to be, Adam?
Oh man, dropping that kind of bomb on, I was
Klein looked ready. Klein was ready, so I can throw it to Klein first.
I was hoping you were going to take that, but I will say you made a great point when you were talking about, and I saw that conversation that you guys had when you said telekinesis, because you cover so many bases, and I agree with what you said too, that so often people are like, oh, I'd love to fly, or oh, I'd love super strength, or these things, but it's like, if you kind of scale back and compare these powers to everything, you're getting a very small fraction there. But I can't lie that it would be really, really cool to be strong or, be able to fly. But see, like the ability to, and maybe this is not even maybe, this is almost definitely recency bias, but the ability, like having Magneto's powers and the ability to kind of manipulate magnetic fields with the amount of stuff he's able to do. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the episode. So much of what I love about this season is how they're visualizing Magneto's powers, which doesn't relate to this question at all, but it just, X-Men 97 is making Magneto out to be so damn cool. So right now, asking me this question like 3 hours after I just watched probably my favorite X-Men thing that I've ever watched in my entire life, I'm going to say I'm going to take Magneto's powers, the ability to manipulate magnetic fields, metal, all that kind of stuff.
Klein, what about you?
I think, 95% of the inconveniences in my day is that to get anywhere, I actually have to like move or like travel a distance to get there. And I'm not talking like going to work or going to the doctor. I'm like the kitchen for breakfast. So teleportation would be ideal. I would love to be able to just like walk through a portal, snap my finger, do something, and be in London, be in Paris, go wherever, go hang out with Adam Blevins in the South, like do whatever I want without having to like worry about the like distance I've got to cover to get there.
Teleportation would be absolutely incredible. Like, I love the idea of traveling. I love going to conventions and expos. I've been to Europe a couple times and I adore it. But I get such bad anxiety, not with like on a plane, not the literal act of traveling, but with the idea that like there's no way out of this situation. You can't get home right now if you chose to. You'd have to book flights and be on a flight for X amount of time. You can't just choose to go home tomorrow. And that being stuck just like gives me such bad physical anxiety. And so being able to teleport would completely omit that. I love that. I really like the idea of telekinesis because one, I'd be able to fly, and I've always wanted to be able to fly. I can fly in a lot of my dreams, and it's a lot of fun. I wish I could do it in real life. It would also be the perfect one for basically just any scenario. If I didn't want anyone to know about it, no one would have to know about it, and I could still be a professional athlete if I wanted to. I could be the best quarterback in the history of quarterbacks because I could put the ball exactly where I want to 100% of the time. I could be a basketball player who only missed when they wanted to because anytime I felt like just putting it in the hoop, I could do it with my mind. So that would be really cool. And then, of course, if you ever need to be a hero, you know, with great power does come great responsibility. Telekinesis is very valuable. It's not like I'd be worried about like fire as a power where I'd be scared of burning somebody, you know, just like, no, you can help a lot with telekinesis. And so that would definitely be my go-to, but let's start talking about the episode Tolerance is Extinction Part 2. What did you think about episode 9, Klein?
Oh, I thought it was great. I mean, this show continues, like, pun totally intended here, to be a marvel. Like, it is just, it's incredible to me that they have continued to, like, look as though that they're going to land the plane. It started off really strong. It's continued to be really strong. And I think it's going to end really strong. I saw somebody online saying yesterday that coming into the series, they were worried that the show would be able to like live up to X-Men 92. After the first episode, they were like, I'm worried the rest of the show will have trouble like living up to the first episode. And now they're like, I'm worried that anything else ever will have trouble living up to the rest of this show. So like, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just every episode continues to get better for me. I don't know if we've reached the peak of that Genosha attack. I think that was truly something special in the MCU, but this episode had great moments in it. Last episode had great moments in it. I think the way that this thing is going to end is going to be something like absolutely incredible. And if you had told me a year ago X-Men 97 would be like a potentially top 5 Marvel Studios project, I would laugh at you. I would be like, there's no way. As good as the animated series was, I don't have those like nostalgic touchstones like a lot of people do. I haven't seen the old animated series, and yet I'm still sitting here going like, I love these characters like I love Tom Holland Spider-Man, like I love Chris Evans Captain America, and I've known them for 9 episodes of half-hour television. That is crazy to me, but we're here.
It's truly impeccable. And I think there are a few things that the series does so well. One, like you said, Adam, dialogue. The dialogue is hard hitting. It's powerful. It's meaningful. And it relates to what you think the characters would be feeling. The dialogue,
and they're not afraid to go places with it. Like they're not that it's not, there is the superhero-y, and I bet you didn't see that coming sort of stuff. But then it's like, hey, like, we're going to deal with like some really, really heavy stuff. Like for all the people out there that are like, it's just a superhero cartoon. Like, I don't know how you can watch this and go, this isn't a metaphor for something, because they just like it every single episode. They have something in there that is like, wow, that was powerful. And it's coming from a Marvel cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. The other thing I think they're doing really, really wonderfully is balancing how much they rely on the past with just doing their own thing. There's the perfect amounts of touches to the fans of the OG series and fans of other Marvel characters. We see it in this one where Morph turns into the Hulk and does some Morph smashes for a while, which again, I still don't totally understand what they're doing with Morph's powers, because I understand he's supposed to like a little bit be able to mimic other people's powers, but he's realistically one of the most, he should be an Omega level mutant if he can go to the Hulk and all these other people and do their powers. And so, but that's another thing for another day. They do that absolutely perfectly. And it's got the invincible level. You have no idea what the fuck is going to happen at any point. They're not afraid to pull punch. They're not pulling any punches. They will do anything, and it takes you off guard. They're true to the characters. It's truly a wonderful series. The one biggest flaw for me, and it's still, I just don't understand why more people don't write better stories for her, or more stories for her. It's Storm. I don't think there's been enough Storm. I love the Storm that we've gotten. Allison Seeley Smith, the voice actor, comes right back and is still as incredible as she was in the role on day one. The arc was fun, but even when we get our Storm episode, she gets half of the episode. She gets these amazing lines, but then she loses her powers and she's out for over half the season. I love the respect of she's an Omega level mutant that Storm is getting, but I really wish that we got more of her character. She got some great moments in this one. I'll touch on more later. And then I feel like mostly this episode is going to be just gushing about how great it was, but I do want to give Klein what's the word? I'm not flagpole. What's the word I'm looking for? A pedestal to stand on and say what he wants to say here, because although I think they've done the nostalgia aspect pretty perfectly, there's one guy, let me turn my camera a little bit, but Klein, I know you didn't really like his appearance.
Yeah. Okay. So Spider-Man shows up at the end of, was it last week? Time is just a flat circle to me.
Yeah.
It was
right. Magneto is making the world,
Yeah.
is demagnetizing the world, and Spider-Man's spidey senses are going off.
And he shows up, and people are very cool, or people thought it was very cool, and he is very cool. The 90s Spider-Man cartoon is awesome. And I understand that these two things exist in the same world. And Thomas Carter Rochester, throwing his name out there again, just like freaked out. Just like I could hear his squeals from halfway across the continent. And I'm kind of a little bit sitting here going, why did we need to do that? Because he didn't show up in this episode. I don't know if he's going to show up in the finale. It's just there. People are like, it's world building. But I'm like, it felt very like, ooh, look at, like, remember him? Like, look at the shiny object, everyone. And I feel like that this show has been better than that so far in when it comes to bringing in these other characters. I thought the Captain America cameo was done incredibly, because it's like, we're bringing in this character. He's involved in the story. He furthers the narrative. He hangs out with Rogue and they do a whole thing. And then he leaves. And it's like, oh, that to me felt impactful. Whereas the Spider-Man thing could end up just being like set dressing. And I hate that, because I think that these characters deserve more than that. And that's the only reason I didn't like it. If he does come back, I would have rather they just have him come back and have him show up in the finale for the very first time and actually impact the narrative moving forward, as opposed to, ooh, looky here, he's at the end of the episode and then popping back up again in the final battle. I just think that is very silly, and he deserves better.
Soapbox. That's the word I was looking for. Soapbox. But yeah, I agree. We better get him in season 2. If that's the only Spider-Man touch I get, I'm going to be pissed. I need to see him impact the plot, interact with the characters with the same voice actor back for season 2. But diving into Tolerance's Extinction Part 2, we really get dealing with the fallout of Magneto and his demagnetization of the world, shutting down all the machines. The humans versus mutants war is beginning, and people have to choose their sides. And it's a really interesting and exciting beginning where Storm pops in. She saves Jubilee and Sunspot. Xavier is back home. But it's kind of like you mentioned, Adam, one of the most exciting aspects to me is the individual dialogue we get between these characters. And while the Magneto and Charles stuff we get later is pretty great, the Charles and Scott Cyclops stuff we get at the beginning, where Charles has to explain himself. Dude, why'd you leave? Why'd you leave Magneto in charge? That's a great conversation as well.
All that stuff, I kind of felt like Charles was one of those deadbeat dads in this episode, because I was like, I get it. You know, you wanted to go out and hang with the space people, the Shi'ar, but like, your team needed you, man. This could just be a completely goofy thing that I'm saying because I haven't seen the original series, but I was like upset. Like I felt bad when Cyclops and them were talking to him. Like I felt the pain that they were feeling, because Cyclops in particular was so upset, especially that he ceded control to Magneto. Like Cyclops was doing a good job. Like granted, he had some learning curves to get over, but in the beginning, you could tell he was like enthusiastic and excited, like going along with the anxiety and stuff, but was looking forward to being a leader. And then they got ripped away from him and handed to like the one guy who now he kind of has a chance to look at and be like, this is the guy that you took the job out of my hands and gave it to this guy. And Charles is like, well, I wanted him to have a chance to do it. And it's like, no, don't. I was so mad at Charles at the beginning of this episode with all that stuff. But all the thing, and another thing that I love too, and I may be jumping ahead a little bit here, but that conversation like we were talking about a little bit earlier with them standing when Magneto extends that offer for the first time, and then we get Rogue and Sunspot, and I can't remember if anybody else flew up there with him and joined him. But it's like in those moments, you want, in a way, you're like waiting for Magneto to do something. So then you're like, oh, okay, like fuck this guy, I don't want. But then he's like, the door's open, the invitation's there. Join me if you want, and if not, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you because like you're still my people. And I'm like, you see what he's doing is wrong, but the way he's going about everything, granted, not the murdering people and that kind of stuff, but still, I'm like, they're navigating that line, like walking it's such a fine line of making me relate to the villain, but also be able to be like, okay, he's clearly the villain, but I see where he's coming from. And I know I'm repeating, rehashing a lot of the stuff I said earlier, but that's what they do so well at the beginning of this episode. And I also love, didn't get a chance to talk about last week. Pretty much at the end of last episode and this one, like I mentioned a little bit when we were talking about the powers, the way they visualize Magneto's powers, because when we get it in live action, it's pretty much just, metal stuff floating in the air. That's the essence of what we get. And that makes sense. That's kind of how it has to be in live action. It would probably look a little goofy if you had yellow magnetic waves floating out of, Ian McKellen's hands and these kinds of things. So I get it, but to get to see the actual the manipulation of the magnetic waves and the magnetic fields is so, so cool. And it really it demonstrates, I had no idea how powerful. I mean, I know Magneto is powerful being able to manipulate metal and magnetic fields, but to shut down the magnetic fields from the entire planet to just be able to completely disrupt production of everything on a whole planet, that's probably would make him one of the most, if not the most powerful people on the planet, I guess, outside of Carol and the Hulk and these other characters. But there's pretty much nobody else that I can think of that with the snap of their fingers could do something like he did, which that paired with the stuff I was talking about earlier just makes him the perfect villain to me. And then we get all that conversation and stuff like you were talking about. He's great. I can't stop gushing. I have to keep gushing a little too long because I wasn't here last week, but everything about this show and this episode is just great.
I think Adam, you're coming to the same conclusion, I think, as a lot of comic book X-Men readers, where it's basically just fuck Charles Xavier. We hate Charles Xavier because he makes a lot of bad calls. And I think it's interesting because the original Fox movies very much portray Charles as, the best of us. It's not until Days of Future Past where you really get to see him as a flawed human being, which is one of the reasons I love that movie so much. Just because someone falls and stumbles and loses their way doesn't mean they're lost forever. It's one of my favorite moments in any superhero movie. But we get to see the flaws of Charles Xavier through this. And I think it's starting to set up, Klein. I want to know your take on the conversation with Scott in general, but also I think this is setting up a really interesting arc for Scott in season 2, because a lot of I'll admit I'm not super familiar in depth with a lot of the X-Men comics, but I do know there's a lot of different arcs where he is a lot closer to Magneto's perspective than Charles's perspective. He has come at odds with Captain America a lot of the time because he says dude, you're the best, you believe in everybody, and then anytime it comes to mutants, you always throw us under the bus. And he kind of goes revolutionary mode a little bit. That's where I see things leading for Cyclops a little bit here.
I could totally see that. I mean, this is Scott's thing and has been his thing in comic books and even the Fox movies from the 2000s and stuff is he's always he is the quote unquote leader of the X-Men, but he's the leader in the same way that Leonardo is the leader of the Ninja Turtles. They're even less so. He is just passed up over and over and over again whenever an opportunity. It's working somewhere where your manager is you do such great work, we love having you, and then when raise time comes around, nothing. When promotion time comes around, absolutely nothing. You're just stuck in this middle management, essentially.
You're too valuable in this role, we can't afford to lose you.
You're right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think that's the thing that I've loved about any X-Men media I've consumed, and it touches on what Adam was bringing up, is their biggest villain is also their closest friend, in the sense that Magneto and Charles are so like they're pals. Like they are, since childhood, have been so close, or not childhood, but young adulthood, have been so close to each other, and they want the same thing. It's just the way to get there is completely different. They both want mutants to be accepted. Magneto's way of getting there is killing all the humans, so they just have to accept the mutants rule, and there's actual true acceptance on the Charles side. And Charles, even in this, does come off in the same way that he does in the Fox movies at bits, where it is like he's the good guy. Charles the good guy. He's the good guy. He's the good guy. But good people can do bad things, and good people can, to try and get the good results that they want, can manipulate. They are also like flawed human beings as well, or mutant beings. And so I think that this like conversation between Scott and between Charles is very much demonstrating that, where it's like he's like, I still see good in Magneto. I wanted to give him a chance, and kind of is like, I didn't think you were ready, to Scott. And so I think that that's going to come back into play a little later. I do ultimately think that when this whole thing ends, however many series we go down the line, I think it is Scott in charge of the X-Men. It like fully headmaster the whole thing. We're just going to take some turns to get there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be even like a Scott is in charge of the X-Men, but it's where we like, these are my X-Men, not yours, Xavier. Like, I'm doing my own thing now without your guidance, you overseeing things. What I love about the Xavier and Magneto comparison is so often, especially in the Fox movies, they're very much portrayed as like the early ones. Sorry, not always the later ones, but they're very much portrayed as almost like Black Panther and Killmonger, where it's like you're saying some good things, but the way you're going about it, totally wrong, bad. But in this, we're starting to see a lot more of Magneto's perspective, and not just it being the bad perspective. And what it's very much like is I would try and, I remember when I was still teaching, and I would try and explain protesting to kids in a very privileged area, from a very privileged school, coming from very privileged families, who hear things from their parents in the news, things like that, like, oh, like, I believe people should be able to speak up for what they want, but like, why do they got to damage the property, and why do they got to do this, blah blah blah. And I say that, and my best way of explaining it would, and I don't know if this is the best way, this is just how I personally would say, imagine I'm like and I wouldn't do this and get close, but say like, imagine I was right in your personal space. I was smacking you on the head over and over and over and over again. And you ask me politely to stop, and I don't. And then you ask me like more forcefully to stop, and I don't. And then you ask a friend for some support. They both ask me to stop. I'm still not stopping, no matter what you do. You have followed all the rules. You've taken all the proper steps, and I'm still not stopping. How else could you get my attention other than physically making me to? When that sometimes that comes down to the last straw, when you've exhausted all other options, is it, if after all of that, you give me a push to get you away from you, you've asked me 12 times, are you the bad person for pushing me away from you when I wouldn't get out of your space? Or am I the problem because I wouldn't get out of your space? And that kind of is an example of Magneto's life to me, because he's tried Charles's way so many times. Not only does he grow up in the Holocaust, and so he's just fresh off the start, sees the terrible things humans can do. But throughout the years, we see it. It just pains me every single time as Michael Fassbender, where it's just like he's got his new family at the start of Apocalypse. He's trying to do things the right way. He's doing it Charles' way. He's trying to fulfill his dream. And he gets taken away every single time. Every single time he tries to do it Charles's way, it doesn't work. It's not that he's just too stubborn. He tries it and it fails. And so we really are getting to see the other extreme. Like, we've tried it so many times, we're running out of options other than to fight back. And it's really, really incredible storytelling. And the beginning of the episode really reminded me of the scene in the Avengers where they're all like, Hulk had just fallen onto Earth. Thor, same thing. He was just in the tube. He's reclaiming his hammer, brushing his hair. He's flying back in the air, didn't know what to do. Tony's got to get a new suit because the last one is broken. They just broke up and Loki escaped, and they all got to like get back together and assemble. That's what the start of this episode was. It's just like everybody getting back to the mansion, saying like, well, shit, we got our asses handed to us. What do we do? They learn Baston's story. They plan to separate his hold on the Sentinels. Adam, feel free to address any of the stuff leading up to that, the assembling of the team, or we can just dive right into Magneto and Charles, face to face, because he finally gets it. It's the shut up. Like it's the final moment of like, this is what I'm doing. I'm done. I'm done listening to you.
Oh, dude, that scene was great. It always makes me wonder, like Magneto he always has to show another thing that makes me like him and also makes me question, like the villainy side of him, is that he is constantly in a fight, especially having to show so much restraint, because he could just crush and kill everybody in an instant and the fight could be over. Like obviously his goal is not to crush Charles's skull. We know that he doesn't want to kill Charles, and he's been very like staunchly obvious about not wanting to kill mutants in general. I don't even think he wants this fight, because to him, this probably, to all of them, that's the best and the worst part, is that none of them want to be doing this. This is so counterproductive, like them having to get into a fight with each other. Before that, though, I want to say I didn't feel this same connection, but when they were getting the suit up scene where like we see Wolverine put on the brown and yellow, and we see all cool. the even more. I kind of like even I thought that I was like, oh, this is sick. But when I'm watching it, I'm like, I know there's some people who like
just dead.
Like the real X-Men lovers who have been watching and reading this stuff for their entire life.
What were you expecting?
That's
Black
the thing.
leather?
Yeah, the nod to the movie, absolutely perfect. But also just like, it's like you said, Adam, that's not even from the cartoons. That's just straight comics. That's for the OG comic fans right there.
And that was what I was when I was watching it, because like obviously I'm not familiar with the comics, but I love those scenes where I'm watching and I'm just like, I know this is lighting up. So there's somebody dancing in their living room, just screaming right now because they're so excited. And that, even though I didn't feel that scene because I don't have that history, it was still really cool. I love that Wolverine suit, and it seemed like to me they were already wearing very comic accurate costumes like throughout the whole show, but then it's like they almost turned back the clock and made them look even cooler, and then kind of gave everybody their own special look instead of just everybody wearing the blue and yellow. They all had their different looks and stuff, which I love. But all that stuff was great, and then we lead into that scene. Yeah, the shut up thing though, and that was hard to watch for me in particular, like watching, because that was all I could think about, was like I was talking about earlier, is the restraint, because I'm like, I know this has to hurt Magneto doing this stuff to the people that we know he cares about them. So, and when you like, I was about to say when you, as if I have any relation to this, but watching characters do this kind of thing where they could overpower the person like that they care about, but they're having to show that restraint and having to hold back. That has to be such a conflicting feeling, because like I said, none of them want to be fighting. So all of that stuff it was painful for me to watch, because I knew how painful it was for all the characters involved. And that's great storytelling. That's how you get people to care, is when you get people to resonate with what the characters are feeling, and then feel it alongside them, not just be like, oh yeah, that would suck for them, I guess. But then me also being like, this just sucks having to watch it. That's when you've pulled off something special, and they have.
And it's relatable on the surface level, and then extrapolated to the max, because just consider on a day-to-day basis how we have this every day, Adam, when you're working hard with some of your very best friends and you disagree on how to go about something. It can be a really annoying, tough conversation. Klein, I'm sure you have this at the director with the pod regardless, but working in an industry with a lot of your really close friends, when the work aspect gets a little tough, it can be tough to manage, right? And usually it takes us a day, sometimes 2 or 3 days, until we get on the same page. We tell each other we love each other, and we move forward with the compromise. Now imagine you've been doing this with your best friend your entire life, and the decision you come to is like, fuck it, screw you, I'm done, because you're too stubborn. I've tried to show you all these different ways and you're too stubborn. it makes for the conversation so much more hard hitting. We got Rogan Sunspot joining that team too, Klein. Rogue's wearing Gambit's trench coat. What did you think of all the OG costumes, the conversation, just in general?
I mean, it's just the costumes themselves, to dive into that, it just, again, shows how much love that has gone into this. Like, this is not just another project being put together by these people. Like, this is something that is so special and means a lot to the people behind it, I guess, because you wouldn't do that if it didn't. And yeah, I think that this conversation is something that has been seen and done in many different forms throughout the years of X-Men media. And this to me was maybe not the most impactful, because I haven't read every X-Men comic ever, but it did really hit where it is kind of like this great bond that is now, it had frayed before and it had shown its cracks, and they'd fought each other and done all these things, but it broke here. And it might be mended, you never know, but it's, at least for the time being, completely severed, which I think is really interesting, because we have one episode left, and I don't think they're going to leave that resolved. I think that this is very much not going to end in a happy place for that relationship, but this ultimately might be the best thing for the both of them, is if they just do their own thing. It's like that. It's like those two friends that you have for a long time, and they start dating, and it's like, oh no, I don't know if the two of you should have done that. Maybe maybe it would be the best for all of us if we just took time apart. Like, if you guys just like ended it, and we don't see you, we don't see them, you just do your own thing for a little bit. And I think that is what everyone here needs. I would almost prefer if Charles went off planet again. I think that he has done nothing but bad things since he came back to Earth.
Charles, get your ass back to the Shi'ar. I agree with it's all leading towards a really, really exciting finale. The one moment before we get into the final part of the episode that I want to touch on, that I love so much, is I really enjoyed throughout this series the relationship between Jean and Storm. They've always been close, but I think they're a lot closer than they were ever shown in the movies and are ever shown in the original TV show. And it makes sense, because you're on a team called the XMen, and you're not only women, but are the two most powerful members by so far. And you get to just bond as, being goddesses. It makes sense. It's pretty cool. They go through a lot of similar stuff. They go through it together. And that moment where they are kind of pumping each other up.
They get the line of the episode, in my opinion.
Make them weather your mind, sister. Jean make them mind your weather, sister. Jean says to Storm. And Storm looks at her and says, and them weather your mind. It's just, I love it. It was a verbal equivalent of a secret handshake. It was so damn cool. It made me tear up. It made me shiver. And the battle scenes begin, and it's exciting, and it's fun action. And I'm thinking through the entire time, the whole time it's happening, why the fuck are you sending the dude made of metal to fight the guy who controls metal, instead of to go help slash up all the robots? Because you know what Wolverine is great against? Robots. Sentinels. Fighting Bastion with Jean Grey, Scott, and that team. You know where he doesn't make sense to be? Fighting friggin' Magneto, the guy who can control his entire exoskeleton. We get in really fun fight sequences. It all looks like it's going pretty decently until shit hits the fan. When Mr. Sinister is there doing all kinds of crazy animated fight sequences. His fight with Jean was wild. Dipping in and out of the shadows like that, looking like a little Hydro Man / Dracula combo. Very, very interesting fight sequence. But when shit hits the fan is when Sinister reduces that little techno virus he put inside Cable, unlocks his telekinetic abilities a little bit, and Cable takes out Jean. What the hell just happened to Jean? She says, goodbye, Scott, I love you. Did Jean just die? What's going on there? And then, on the other side of things, that's Team Blue. Now we got Team Gold. What the fuck is going on here? Logan sneaks up somehow behind Magneto, stabs him through the chest, and Magneto says, I finally had enough out of you. I'm going to remove the adamantium out of your body. Heal from that, motherfucker. Now, we've seen Wolverine can heal from damn near anything. But Adam, is Jean dead? Is Magneto dead? Is Wolverine dead? This is the invincible level stuff we're talking about, where literally anything can happen. And my goodness, this is not something we're used to seeing in an X-Men cartoon.
Yeah. So to answer your questions, first off, this was nuts. This was like watching this. I was absolutely blown away, and this was what made me be like I saw our fellow agent Ryan tweet something that X-Men 97 was the first show since like the first couple of Disney Plus shows that we got that he was going to be setting an alarm to wake up to watch the finale. And I was like, wow, this episode must be good. And while I don't quite have the bandwidth to do that, I definitely won't be setting a 3 a.m. alarm for myself. I'm going to be watching this at like 5 a.m. like as soon as I wake up, because watching all that stuff happen to Logan there at the end. But I had some of the same. Even I was like, why are you here? Like, we get to see it in, I think is it Days of Future Past, whichever one it is, that he just completely puts them and like manipulates his whole body. I'm like, you are useless here. That like why are, and he's still like talking to him like he's like, finally we're ready to just fight. Let's go ahead and do it. And I'm like, you don't want this. This is the one person on the planet you can't fight. Like, what are you doing here? But
this has always been the thing. Like Magneto's never Magneto, because of the relationship that he has with the X-Men and Charles. Yes, they will fight. Yes, they will draw blood, but he will never murder one of them. That's just the way that it goes. And that's not some written rule somewhere. It's just because this is ultimately his friend. Charles is ultimately his friend, and yeah, they're on opposing sides. And at this point, it gets to a point where he's like, okay, that's it. I've had enough. And just with a snap of finger does that.
It was like, that was brutal to watch. But to answer your question, TJ, so I'd be surprised if they kill Jean, mostly just because, going back to a little bit what you talked about with Storm, the men really heavily outnumber the women in this show. And I think it would be kind of a bad look and just a bad call in general to take out one of the, like one of your central, like Jean Grey. Like if you ask people to name like the three, or 5 mutants, like a lot of people would probably include like, well, I mean, maybe not. I don't know. You see what I'm saying though?
It's Wolverine is tier 1 by himself in terms of popularity, but then it's Storm, Jean, Cyclops,
right? Professor X, Magneto, like some of those, yeah. So like I think like to me, and I agree with you that in power, but also in popularity, like Storm and Jean are kind of in a tier of their own, like compared to a lot of the other the women mutants. So I think it'd be a really bad call, especially considering they took the powers away from one of them for the entire season to then kill the other one at the end of the season, especially because it seems like they have more plans. We know they have. Season 2 is coming soon, and then we also have reportedly is supposed to have a season 3 as well. So it seems like they've got good plans for the show that down the future. So I'd be surprised if they eliminate Jean from those entirely. I know like it was kind of a shock to me to lose Gambit, but that's also one of those characters that, as much as I love Gambit, he's still kind of secondary, and that I haven't been watching these last few episodes. Been like, man, this just isn't the same without Gambit. Like, sure, I miss him. I'm sad that he's gone.
Gambit's probably the favorite of the secondary characters, but it's Gambit, Jubilee, Morph. They are the secondary characters of the team, whereas like I'd say Beast is kind of on the edge of the main crew. But the Cyclops, Jean, Storm, that is the main X-Men that you think of when you think of X-Men.
Agreed. So on the Jean front, I don't think she's dead, and I also think it would be a big mistake if she is. And then, oh man, going back to, before I answer Wolverine, I want to answer Magneto first. I almost think he has to be, because I am usually not a fan, as we have talked about many times on this show, I am not a fan of fake out deaths. You have to really pull off a fake out death well for me to even just be like, okay, I didn't mind that. They did it once with Magneto earlier in the season. We found out he was alive. I was kind of expecting that. I would have been surprised if that the Sentinel killed him. But 3 Wolverine claws like straight through the chest. And as far as I know, Magneto doesn't have any healing properties. So to me, if he somehow comes back from this, I'm going to be a little like, I don't want him to. I love Magneto. I want him to like selfishly because I love the character and I want to see more of him. I think Matthew Watterson's doing an amazing job. But I'm going to be annoyed if he comes back again, because then I'm like, okay, like I know you've showed me you can kill people. You killed Gambit. You killed all the other mutants. Like I get it. But you got to like this would be upping the stakes even more. Like killing Magneto would be like they talked about earlier in the season too, how them killing Gambit was very much a, hey, we're not fucking around. Like we're going to show you that we'll kill. If they really want to show people they're not fucking around, they'll do what they did with Magneto this whole season, which is making him like an awesome and beloved character. And then have another awesome and beloved character, Wolverine, kill him at the end over a dispute they shouldn't even be in, which is like almost certainly going to be a part of next episode. Is like we shouldn't even have been fighting. Like this shouldn't even have come to this, and now we've lost one, maybe two of the best of us. I can't wait to deal with the fallout of that. But I definitely don't think Wolverine is dead. I'd be surprised if that kills him. I'd also just be surprised in any property like Logan was. If you're going to kill a character like Wolverine, you have to do so much work to get to that point. And for a lot of the people, which I'd say there's a lot of people like me watching the show that didn't watch the original series, would be really, really, like a lot of general audience people would be really bummed out and also just generally really turned off if they're like, you're going to kill Wolverine in season 1? That's like the biggest mutant. Like you were saying, TJ, he is in a tier of his own. And also, there's not been a lot of Wolverine this season either. We haven't gotten some really, really crazy, emotionally poignant Wolverine arc that I would be like, I'd be devastated if he was dead. Or I'm not even going to say that. I'd be sad if he was dead because it's Wolverine. Like I've gotten a chuckle out of pretty much any time he speaks. I love the character, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, Wolverine. Like they did so much with him this season. How could they kill Wolverine? So to round things out at the end, I don't think Jean's dead. I'd be surprised and disappointed if she's dead. I think Magneto, oh my God, that's such a tough one if I think he is. I think Magneto's dead, and I think that's a good call for him to be dead. And then Wolverine, I think that's a pretty easy no, I don't think Wolverine's dead. And I would also be surprised if he is dead.
What do you think of the fallout of all of this, Klein? Because Jean had the I love you, goodbye, Scott moment. Is that going to lead to her being either dead or gone for a while? Or are we going to get some kind of big Phoenix rise from the ashes and she's going to fuck everybody up and save the day? And then Magneto and Logan, because Magneto got stabbed through the chest. Logan got all the adamantium ripped out of his body. Even if he's fine and heals, is he no longer adamantium Logan? Is he just going to be a dude with claws and rapid healing?
I think to start with the Wolverine point, I think that's kind of where we're headed, which is very interesting because we haven't seen that in a long time. I just rewatched X-Men Origins Wolverine because I'm going through all of the X-Men movies, and like obviously that starts with like he has bone claws. There's a scene where someone breaks them and it looks absolutely just like the most painful thing ever. It could be cool to like to strip that adamantium from him and like see what kind of hero he can be without it in this kind of capacity. I have no idea where like the series goes from here. Do you kill Magneto right now? He is such an iconic character. He's so beloved. It isn't like killing Gambit. And I get that they're saying we're not messing around with this, but like that'd be huge. You have 2 more seasons of this show and you're just there will be no more Magneto storylines. Like that seems crazy to me. The way you could get around it is like he can manipulate metal. There's iron in your blood. Maybe he clotted the wounds very quickly and like figured it out. Sunspot cauterized him or something. I don't know.
Just below the heart.
It was, yeah. It was kind of like right in the ribs. So, you know, he could be okay.
Rogue touches him and then touches Magneto and gives him Wolverine's healing powers.
I'm interested to see with what he pulls the adamantium from Wolverine. I'm interested to see like what happens to that metal. What happens to these characters immediately following this? Because we do kind of end not cliffhangery, but like I have a feeling next week's episode is going to pick up right here. What happens with like these characters? I have this weird image in my head of like, could Magneto like fashion the binds that hold Wolverine captive out of the metal he just pulled from his body, which would be so cool and like so heavy metal. I would love that. And like yeah, is Jean gone? Jean's never really gone. That's like kind of the thing. So we could get Phoenix Rising. Is this another clone? Is this the clone? Like, were they lying the whole? We don't. There's so many ways they could go with this Jean to get around the goodbye Scott and really, really fuck with Scott in the process by doing it. And I think that's going to be where we go with her, is like, maybe it was all in someone's head, or maybe there was never a clone, or maybe there's more clones, or is this, I forget the clone's name, Marjorie?
Madeline.
Madeline
Pryor.
Is it like, was this Madeline? Were they switched? And you could really, really mess with and make Scott question things even more, which I think could be very interesting and lead him on the path that you were talking about, TJ, and potentially having him like kind of lose it a little bit.
Have her be gone for a while, and have Scott and the recently proven to be alive Emma Frost hit it off for a little while, and then have Jean come back again and be like, dude, what the fuck, again? Another telepath? Because that's how it works in the comics. And so that would actually be a pretty funny way of going about things. It'd be wild if they do end up killing off a lot of characters, and then this ends with essentially no more Genosha. Here's Krakoa. We got our little Lazarus pit / way to reincarnate mutants with that the same way they did in the comics, and we're going to start from scratch. Would be a really interesting way to go about things. But we're going to find out next week. Tolerance's Extinction Part 3, the season 1 finale of X-Men 97 on Disney Plus. And like you guys said, it might be necessary to, whether it be setting an alarm or making sure you don't touch your phone or look at a social media until after the finale is out, because that is going to be very, very exciting. Now that the Bad Batch is done, Klein, what are you guys going to be covering over on the Reckless Rebellion podcast until the Acolyte gets here? Where can the people find you on socials, and do you have any fun articles coming?
Well, you can keep up with me everywhere. I'm at the Klein Felt. That's TheKleinFelt. On Reckless Rebellion over the next little while. We've got this week coming up our Tales of the Empire review. So look for that in podcast feeds the next couple of days. We just watched that on May the 4th. And then it's going to be pretty quick. We've got a couple episodes to fill, but it's going to be pretty quick getting into the Acolyte primer stuff. Obviously, we do have Thomas Carter Rochester on the podcast, the High Republic guy. He's read more books than I even know. So we're going to go in there and like deep dive this thing beforehand, so everyone is all caught up and ready to go. And as for over on the direct, got plenty to write about right now. The entertainment industry is just, there's never a dull moment, it seems. So just head on over there, click through a few interviews. Been doing a lot of a few articles and interviews there up there as well. Been doing a lot of video game coverage in the last couple of days, and so go check out. You want to talk Sonic 3 trailer? Let's go. I've got an article up there for you right now, and a few other things. Hades 2 just came out on PC, and I've been playing that, writing about it. It's been busy, but it's been good.
I'm weirdly excited for Sonic 3, as it seems to be adapting one of my favorite video games of all time with Sonic Adventure Battle 2. So really looking forward to that. Check out agentsofandom.com every day, as Adam likes to say, because we got so much great stuff coming, but it really is the case right now. I just pumped out 7 Star Wars articles in the past few days with all the Tales of the Empire recaps, reviews, all those great things. I'm also writing about HBO's The Sympathizer right now. You can watch it on Crave in Canada and Max in the States. Really, really strong show about the war in Vietnam and a double spy living through all of it. So make sure you check that one out. We got Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes review from Ryan, as well as his interviews with Owen Teague and Kevin Durant, and lots of more exciting interviews coming, including I chatted with Larry Houston, the director and creator of the original X-Men the animated series, at the Calgary Expo, and that should be dropping within the next couple days here as well. Adam, what is Dark Matter? Where can I watch it, and should I be watching it? Because you've been pumping out some articles about that new show as well.
Yes. Dark Matter, that's a really loaded question. So it's based off a novel by Blake Crouch. It's a sci-fi novel. It is a multiverse story unlike anything you have ever seen before, that dives into like real consequences of the whole story. Is about getting to live what people are willing to sacrifice to get to live the road, like to take the path not taken. Every time you make a choice in your life, where there's a reality out there where I was so tired. I said, you know what, TJ, I can't sit down and do this podcast. And then my whole life goes in a different direction because of it. What if we had access to those realities and that we could meet alternate versions of ourselves and visit alternate worlds and see things like that? It's unbelievable. Having read the book and then watched the show, they do such a great job kind of navigating. This was my first time watching a show that I had read. Like, obviously I've watched The Last of Us and some other, I've watched played video games that have been adapted, but this was my first time reading a book. So I was very skeptical going in that it was going to be a little too predictable, because I felt like I was going to know what was going to happen and know things that were coming. But that's not been the case at all so far. There's 2 episodes out on Apple TV right now. Joel Edgerton, Jennifer Connelly, Jimmy Simpson, who plays Dr. Hemlock in The Bad Batch. He's also in there as well. A lot of really, really good characters. But yeah, you can watch that up on Apple TV. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming too. I'm going to be writing the review and doing weekly recaps. We'll be obviously finishing out Dark Matter with weekly recaps, and then I will be writing the review, doing recaps for The Boys and House of the Dragon coming up in the next coming months. We're going to have Garrett doing the Acolyte, and then TJ, we've got you doing the Sympathizer. We've got so much stuff going on at Agents of Fandom. And then I also, just to talk about myself a little bit, since we were last on this podcast, I had the chance to do something really, really cool for me, which was getting to break the Skeleton Crew, like the official release date of the Skeleton Crew over on Collider, which you can always find me writing movie and TV news, and then over on Screen Rant as well, writing about video games. So a whole lot. Another thing that, Klein, I'm not sure how much of an Elden Ring. Do you play Elden Ring, Klein?
Oh, yeah.
Are you looking forward to Shadow of the Earth Tree?
I am, but I haven't played. I went through it about a year ago, the game.
Same.
And have not touched it since then, and I'm a little scared because I'm like, do I start a new file and just like go again and be ready for the DLC? Am I going to remember? It's always the hard part about these like downloadable expansions that come out years after the game comes out. It's like, I haven't touched. I've done so much since then. I'm excited. I don't know if I'm actually going to play it, but I'm excited to see everyone else be excited about it.
See, that's kind of where I was at too. And then I got to that point. I hit my breaking point about 3 weeks ago, and I started another playthrough, and I just forgot how this may be one of the most perfect games. It really is just like one of the most perfect and expansive games ever. But I will say that they just, because I got a big article coming to Screen Rant, I believe tomorrow, about it, some of the lore and some of the information, and like the how long we can expect it to be and things. But this is one of those DLCs that so you can't take a super overpowered character into the DLC. They've changed the level up system. So no matter how high level or how much time you spend on it, everybody's loading into the DLC at base level, which I kind of don't like, because Elden Ring is really hard. And in order to be good at it, I have to like super, super over level myself so I can manage all the very difficult boss fights. So I'm very skeptical about it, but I will be writing about that, or playing that and writing about it over on Screen Rant. But yeah, we've just circling back to Agents of Fandom. We've got so much stuff coming between, like right now, Dark Matter, the Sympathizer, Tales of the Empire, the Acolyte, the Boys, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power later this year as well. I mean, we're going to have just everything up on the website. So yeah, just what do I always say, TJ? Stay tuned to the website, to agentsoffandom.com, because we've got whatever you're looking for up there.
One more thing I want to highlight as well is the brand new season of Doctor Who starting, and our own Agent Millie will be recapping those episodes as well. And you can find her spoiler-free review as well as recaps of the first couple episodes up on agentsoffandom.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will be back next week talking more X-Men 97 on behalf of myself, Adam, and the wonderful Klein. Thank you so much for being our guest today. We will see you again next week, everyone. Peace.
Peace.